I'm John Kaiser at the Metals Investor Forum in Vancouver, September 9th, 2022. I am speaking with Patrick Power, CEO of Arctic Star Exploration. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Good to see you, John.
I've designated Arctic Star's Diagrass project as an emerging discovery play because based on the results reported so far, there seems to be something going on that's perhaps bigger and better than what De Beers assessed when it first staked this property in 1991 as the Hardy Lake property. Now, just to sketch in the background, when Diamet and BHP did their regional till sampling and ended up homing in on the Caddy cluster area, they gradually built a circle of claims and then figured they had got it all, and that was it. And we finally got news November 1991 about the Point Lake pipe, that this was interesting from a diamond perspective. And all the juniors swarmed around in the area, but De Beers, because it had sampled in that area, knew there was interesting chemistry, just hadn't figured out where exactly it was. And they went northeast. Aber went to the sort of southeast, to the DHK group, and the ATW group went to the south. Others, Fibercon Tanqueray went to the north, and then somebody else went to the west. And De Beers, within a decade, had knocked off several dozen kimberlites based largely on magnetic anomalies. And they ended up being sort of small half hectare to 3.5 hectares, which is sort of like 2 million, 50 million tons to a 200 meter depth. But there was a paper they published, Barbara Scott Smith published, which sort of reviewed the geophysical strategy. And it mentioned that some of the indicator mineral dispersal trains within the larger data set were not explained by what they did find. But everything was too small. Most of them were diamondiferous, but none enough to be taken to a mini bulk sampling stage to assess for macro grade. They optioned it to Magiscore in 2004 and then eventually dropped it. Now, they held it for a long period, and the government requires assessment work to be filed. There should be microdiamond data, or even the microdiamonds themselves for each of the kimberlites. There should be chemistry data that was generated for each of this. There should even be till data available as data sets in the assessment files. To what extent have you been able to recover the work that De Beers did during that early decade?
The only thing we've ever gotten from assessment from De Beers is geophysics in paper form. That's it. We get diamond results when they choose to give them to assessment reasons, and they hold back when they choose not to. And it's been really difficult. In fact, we've given up. We've really not utilized any of the information from them. We just look at the drill records and where they put their holes and what kimberlites they had. This all goes back to Buddy's philosophy of why we're there and how we're looking at this differently than they did the first pass. But as your point is, like, it's really sad because everyone lives by a certain set of rules, and we can't access, like, we're really interested in one of the pipes that they drilled a lot back in the day, back in '94, but we have no information at all. They did the most work on that pipe of any of 25 pipes, but yet there's no information, no diamond results out of 7 holes. No geophysics other than very regional that they did. So it's unfortunate that they don't have to play by the same set of rules as everybody, because that's how our business operates. But we've done our own work now, and we've kind of superseded what they could have done in those days, just newer technology and whatnot, and moved forward. But it's very difficult. Like, there's nothing available.
Now, Arctic Star is really a second generation a slave Creighton, Nunavut explorer. Buddy Doyle worked for more than a decade in the exploration department of Rio Tinto, which was Kennecott at that time. They found numerous pipes up in the north. None of them ever became worth developing.
Yeah.
But when obviously you guys go into these assessment archives and scour it, and Buddy would know what was filed, what's available. Is De Beers unusual in the paucity of assessment work that it has made available, or do all of them play the same game?
I'd say De Beers plays it more than most. I mean, De Beers' philosophy, when Chuck was doing his very earliest bit in the territories, is we've been here, diamonds don't exist in Canada. So obviously that was never the truth, but with misinformation and no information, that's the way they promote that kind of suggestion. And it's been, they're not really useful to be a partner with because they have their own agenda. And we're a small company. We're trying to make our shareholders benefit. And they have no concern about anybody other than De Beers. And that's what their history's been, and that's what we expect them to be in the future. But the government needs to really look, like when you do work, you should have to file it. It's kind of, I don't know how they didn't, but they made decisions selectively, what they put through assessment. They had a big, as you said, a very long time frame that they did a lot of work, spent a lot of money, but only reported what they wanted people to see. So if they weren't successful on the surface, they didn't want people like us seeing an almost, because it almost gets, someone with other ideas of how to look at this. It could make something positive happen, and that's generally a negative for them. If it's not them, it should be no one else. Mm-hmm. So I think that's their philosophy. And Buddy is a very, very smart man, and he had a really interesting philosophy. That's where we got this property. It's just a different way of thinking than De Beers thought. And it's been very successful because our first season of drilling, we hit 5 new Kimberlites, where they've been, for 27 years, I believe they had that property. It's a long time. And in our first drilling season, we hit 5 new Kimberlites. And we have, we're constrained by our drill season, which is short, and then we're constrained by money that we have or don't have, and it's in weather, which has been a big factor over the last few years. So we don't get as much work done in the last 2 years as we'd like to. We should have drilled more this season, but we got 6 holes into Sequoia, which we'll talk about, is really interesting. It's a very big body with really interesting results and really interesting chemistry. And we hit just 1 new pipe out of 2 holes, Arbutus, which is in an area that Buddy and I like a lot for reasons that come around the De Beers discovery 75 meters away. That was a pipe that they put 7 holes into. And believe me, I don't care if you're De Beers or you're a small company, you do not put 7 holes into something unless you know the results of the previous hole. The first hole leads you to the second leads you to the third. My discussions with some people from De Beers is it was a very, very good diamond result, only the intrusion was too small to support a standalone mine. And they didn't have anything in the background to support that 1 pipe. So it was going to be that pipe, and you can't spend $2 billion if you've got $2.3 billion worth of diamonds in a pipe. You need to have like a Diavic, a 4 or 5 pipe effort, and a Coddy, a 4 or 5 pipe effort to sustain over a period of time and make it obviously a valuable asset. So we're waiting on our Arbutus results like this moment, like today. So it's a very now thing, and that will give us, it's a very small sample. We just clipped the edge of it. I think we hit down to 25 meters, then we got back into granite. So we hit the edge twice. We drill from the same drill setup and in different directions just to see the edges. But we got 143 kilos of kimberlite, which isn't much because it's kind of like an armful of kimberlite. So it's quite a small sample to prove it's diamondiferous. And we also sent part of that core to CF Minerals, to FIPKI. Chuck's super strong point in his world of diamond is he's a great chemist for diamonds. And we're working in partnership with him. He's been a very close friend and ally. And between Buddy and Chuck, we have kind of the 2 guys that really push the entire Lac de Gras forward in the diamond world. So we'll see the chemistry and the diamond results. I think on Tuesday we'll have that news release on Arbutus, and then we'll await the Sequoia results, which will take longer.
Now, the Sequoia body is very close to the Jack Pine body, which was already in existence when Magiscar optioned it, and they did sieve-based microdiamond analysis, present the results. It's the only results that we have. And when you plot that curve, it's bad. It promises 0 macro grade potential. And what caught my interest was when you did the Sequoia just to the north, you had a curve which, depending on how optimistic or pessimistic your modeling is, could be anywhere from 20 to 70 CPHT. Now, that's not what you call high grade in this part of the world, but you're dealing with a situation where you don't need a standalone mine. You just need stuff that where the cost of digging it up out of the ground and processing it is less than the value, which means eventually you're going to need high gem value to offset the low grade. But the question I want to ask now, it's twofold. What are you doing differently from De Beers that's enabling you to spot kimberlites that De Beers overlooked that might end up explaining that chemistry that was never explained? And does it make sense to re-drill some of these other bodies and do contemporary microdiamond analysis just to see if these things are better than in those days when we had that silly macro-micro distinction of half millimeter in one dimension, which is totally meaningless. Do you think, what are you doing to find new kimberlites? And do you think it's worthwhile to reassess some of the existing ones like Finlay?
On both questions, yes, we think we should go back and drill Finlay again. It's just a logical sleuth type reason. I know the De Beers people, they're like anybody else. If you're wrong too much in a big company, you're fired. So if you're spending that much money, you've really got an indication it's interesting. And there was a flaw, and the flaw was the body was probably too small for them to build that standalone mine. One of the things that I really wanted to see is the chemistry of arbutus, because they are super close and maybe even connected at depth. I mean, it's a possibility. So the chemistry will be really interesting to see. And I've talked to Chuck just before I came in here. So you might be really interested in the chemistry that comes out of that, because it's going to be a dynamic chemistry. So that makes Finlay look even more interesting to us, because it could be, as I said, part of the same body, but it is definitely, these mines occur, the pipes that are actually mined tend to be in clusters, close together, probably because you're getting the right diamonds in the mantle in that area, and you're getting intrusions coming through, and you're seeing, pipe here, pipe here, pipe here, all part of the mine plan, with the exception of Misery, which is a bit of a stringer pipe for a Coddy. That's the feeling you're getting, because we have 4 of the really nice targets around this. And they're not magnetic, they're EM gravity targets. They're right around Finlay and Arbutus. So it's got implications of getting good chemistry out of this. It's a sneak peek at the diamond counts, because it is a small sample. But it's really valid. And Sequoia obviously is a much more progressed, interesting, not the typical lock-to-rock chemistry. It's a larger diamond 600K chemistry that Chuck said they had it in one of the pipes from a Coddy, but one phase. And that's where they got all those big stones over 100 carats. It's from that phase and that chemistry. Tend to be really nice, clear, beautiful diamonds, type 2A, as people are talking about these days. But I think the Arbutus will be exactly the traditional G10 chemistry, from what I'm hearing. But I think it could be a really nice chemistry, and it's going to make decisions on Finlay in that small area. It's going to become the micro play within the macro play, because it looks that way. What we're doing differently, we are using different types of geophysics, and traditionally you use your geophysics of any kind to do a big area. You see a target, you come to the ground, you do very tight grids around it, you get off the anomaly because you need to get off of it, and that's it. Buddy didn't want to look at magnetic targets. So many of the pipes of the early day. He had 101 pipes up there himself when he was with Rio Tinto. So he has a large experience, and 4 or 5 of those became part of a mine plan. So we saw the gamut. But the gamut for Diavik was none of them were magnetic. Everything that came into the mine plan was not magnetic. And I always like the story of 8154 South with that beautiful pipe over 4 carats a ton. The most prolific pipe probably up there. Right beside it is a magnetic target that's barren. It's black and white. It's not to say you won't have good diamonds with magnetics, but they're diamond destructive. The process of getting the mag, and the more intense the mag, positive or negative, it doesn't really matter, is a diamond destructive process. Resorption from a little bit to completely. That's what we were trying to avoid. And that's what he did. He just went to 25 intrusions they hit. Instead of doing these tight grids, we did mondo huge grids. So we got way off, like we were exploring with ground geophysics in a way. These things are family oriented intrusions. They come together, and we just did big grids with gravity and EM because we already had the mag, and 5 kimberlites popped right up, and including Sequoia.
So type 2A diamonds have become the rage in the past decade, largely due to Lucara's recovery of 1,000 plus carat stones from its Karo mine in Botswana. And the work done by Evan Smith with the GIA to figure out what these are all about. These so-called clipper diamonds are irregular, not from resorption, but because of the way they form, which is not the way normal diamonds form. They have almost zero impurities, zero nitrogen, are flawless, and form very, very deep. And the slave Creighton diamond mines have disappointed in the sense that they have not produced large stones like the Cullinan diamond from South Africa. And the general view is that type 2A diamonds are not possible. But then the type 2A diamonds come from super deep. They don't grow where the eclogitic and the paroditic diamonds grow, which have been the basis for the Gaucho Quay, Jericho, Diavik, and Ekati. Now, you are optimistic that this area that used to be called Hardy Lake, that's now Diagrass, that the bodies here might have large diamond potential. And that population is a very tiny subpopulation that is not going to have the high grade. The Letseng mine is very, very low grade in Lesotho that produces these type 2A diamonds. What is the basis for your optimism that maybe this area, which never had the benefit of even mini bulk sampling, might be a place where type 2 diamonds were available for the magmas to go up and then grab whatever else was higher up in the diamond stability field?
Well, our chemistry, we had Chuck do the chemistry on Sequoia, and that's what he came back with. Buddy's curve suggests that large diamond potential. And the last thing we had done, it took a long time because we had SRC have a few problems. It took 6 months more. There's nitrogen levels are super low. That's all type 2A diamond information. The one thing that people don't really discuss, and we don't talk about it a lot when we should, is I think we had about 490 diamonds come out of that 500 kilo sample with Sequoia last year. And all of them, without exception, were described as clear white diamonds. And Buddy, who has hit all these pipes up there and has Diavik. So Diavik was about 30 to 40% clear white. The rest were off color and bort. This is unusual, and that's a trademark of that kind of diamond. They're clear, they're flawless, they're without impurities. So and this is a large body. This is the other thing. This is the largest body we know of in Lac de Gras at the moment. So so the tonnage is there, the right indications are there, the chemistry is there, and so far the first result of diamonds we had is there as well. We just need we need more sampling, and that's a factor of money and time and the weather, and we're doing that now. It's our next step up. We're looking to bulk sample if we get the results we're looking for. And Buddy needs to know where in that large body to even do that. But this information coming in the next 3 or 4 weeks, or maybe even sooner than that, will be instrumental in planning and thinking and making sure that we can go forward doing this.
So assuming the micro diamond results confirm that the results from last year were not a localized fluke, but that this is systemic, elevated macro grade potential, obviously at least a mini bulk sample to sample for grade is the next step. What would be the budget for such a program, and what would be your funding strategy, since it's not like you're going to come up with some big visible diamond in core like a 154. You're still going to be dealing with micro diamonds that project into the macro grade.
Well, we've got some interested parties, as long as those results say what they should say, that are looking to put money up in various forms. Like we don't want to dilly too much. It's about $7 million US, Buddy feels to be the number we need for a mini bulk sample. We've got a partner, Margaret Lake, that is responsible for 18.5% of that, but it's still a lot. And you're right, if you don't get the flash of a big diamond, which you don't expect to get, this isn't about that. It's projecting in the future with big tonnage, you're going to get those diamonds. We've got there's several ways we can do this. Bring a partner in that will, without dilution to our company, that could come in and put a fair chunk of money to be a real partner. That's one of the big groups out there that we know of. But there's several things. The least of our wantings is to do a private placement at this price because it's just really difficult.
Well, you have a substantial number of warrants that if the story starts to gain traction and people realize this is not just an emerging discovery John Kaiser talks about, it's turning into a bona fide, significant new discovery. You could get how much money getting all those warrants that have been created over the last few years that are hanging out in there, and what price range?
$15-20 million of various 10 cents and up.
So your challenge is more to market the story if you have the results. And of course, with a lot of shares outstanding, you need fundamental results. So everything hinges on the Sequoia results, but also potentially the Arbutus results showing that there's a high grade potential within the system that has never been properly assessed, and size was too small for De Beers as a standalone operation, but with Diavik and Ekati fading. Have you looked at how long these two mines can operate before they run out of ore?
Diavik's supposed to be about 7 years. I think Ekati is, those guys are actually doing what Buddy's shown people to do, and they're finding more pipes now using the same method. So
they're doing
Ekati,
what you're doing, is you're revisiting all these things that were dismissed with old technology and never revisited.
Correct. So they have a longer, they're like 2030 now. And that could even press out a little longer.
All right, well, let's hope the Sequoia and Arbutus results ring some bells out there. Thank you. I've been speaking with Patrick Power of Arctic Star Exploration. Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks, John.